Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Monday morning trading session. Hold on one second here while I get the screen share going on. I trust everyone had a nice weekend. I hope you had a nice weekend. All right, so what we're looking at here is the NASDAQ. Just a very quick overview for those of you new in the room. We've got the Hawk Scalper here in the top left, Falcon Swing Trader top right, Eagle Trend Trader bottom left, and the Raptor on the bottom right. So this here is the NASDAQ. I'm also watching crude oil and soybeans. But please don't be shy to ask for a market you're interested in seeing. Huge opening gap this morning. We saw the market finish last week here around the 48.45 area, and the market opening around 48.80. So a rather substantial 35-point opening gap. It'll be interesting to see whether or not they try to get into that gap. Honestly, I expected the market to be a little bit weaker this morning or this week, but it doesn't look that way right now, does it? All right, I think we're going to have to give them a moment here to settle in. The overnight, if you were awake for it, well, this right out of the London session would have been pretty difficult to capture, actually. But a couple hours before the North American Open, we had this tidy little 4-arrow consolidation and a macro pullback signal. Here's the post-consolidation signal. And now we're just kind of on hold. I suspect we're going to get another macro pullback, perhaps even a red bar buy signal on the Hawk. I'm thinking a hard edge, pullback to the hard edge, it seems likely. But we'll see. I think a lot of traders were thinking this overnight rally is going to spill over into the morning session, and it very well might. But nothing so far. All right, here they go. They're going to give it a little push. So, well, actually, they were a little reluctant both ways, aren't they? I was going to say they're a little reluctant to head higher. Maybe we'll see a short here, but I don't know. I think I'm going to be sitting on my hands for a little bit here until I get something a little bit more definitive, shall we say. Just checking the reports calendar, see if there's anything due out today. Nothing too terribly serious. Tomorrow is a big day for the European Bank. That might put a nix on today's trading. Oh well, we'll see. Soybeans also opening with a rather substantial gap. This is soybeans now on the Eagle. And you can see almost a mirror image of the NASDAQ, which is a little surprising. The grain markets don't normally follow the stock indices that closely. Yeah, like Tony says, it's International Floss Day in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. There is a quirky calendar out there with all the obscure holidays. The one that sticks in my mind is Talk Like a Pirate Day. Yes, there is actually a day like that. September 19th, I think it is, if you're ever curious. Arr, yarp. That's definitely not a Hallmark holiday, that's for sure. All right, we're getting something resembling a macro pullback signal here on the hawk. Maybe, kind of, sort of. My gut instinct is that we're going to try to get into this opening range gap. That is a pretty big gap below the market. And retracement to the hard edge seems entirely probable. Where's our support and resistance lines teeing up? Yeah, so we've got one here at 48.59, 48.56. Primary resistance all the way down here at 48.52.5. Price currently dipping below the trend line on the Falcon. The filter's already out of sync. The macro pullback signal struggling a little bit. Okay, now we're into yellow bars. Working a possible 4-arrow consolidation. Here on the Raptor, we've produced a sell signal. It's entirely, okay. I was going to say I'm not sure whether or not this is a retest of the high just yet. Before we can take advantage of a soft edge sell, we do need to see a test of the extreme and a failure. Now you do have a chance for second push entry on this signal. The second push simply means that we allow the signal to engage, and then we allow prices to retreat from the signal. It's kind of that knee-jerk reaction that the market will make. But it also shows us the current limit of the buyers or sellers. Come on, give me a proper test of the extreme here, and I'll be all over shorting you. Alright, so here they come, trying to break the high. If it fails on the high, then we'll probably have a good opportunity to short. Below the lows. If it fails. So far it's holding. A breakout above the high could lead to a pretty strong move higher as well. So this is an opportunity for an OCO order, if you prefer. Here they go. So they've broken this high by a couple of ticks, this high right here. If it fails and heads lower, I would still consider that to be a test of the extreme. I wouldn't let the fact that it broke the high by a tick or two negate the test of the extreme, even though most times what we're looking for is a retest that comes up short, right? We're looking for a test of the extreme that is below the last high. All right, and there they go. So they're not really interested in heading lower at the moment. And we'll throw that back on the shelf. The Hawk 4-arrow consolidation worked out pretty well. Looks something like this: 1, 2, 3, fourth signal. The 4-arrow consolidation is the only pattern I will trade off of a yellow bar in the Hawk. And you'll note that the 4-arrow consolidation always consolidates. It always, the market starts to drift a little bit sideways. Normally has a bull flag or bear flag shape to it. In this case, because we're in an uptrend, we're looking for a bull flag type scenario. Crude oil pretty quiet. Here's crude oil. You can see a lot of yellow bars. Might be consolidating. It looks something like this. Where the market's starting to wedge up a little bit. Might see a breakout higher. But nothing tradable on the Hawk yet. Nothing going on here at the moment, so we're just kind of on hold. Yes, right you are, Russell. Russell says, how about that first eagle signal right up there? 30 ticks. Forgot about that this morning. Yep, so far so good. When you get these big opening gaps, if the market doesn't react early, sometimes it seems like the market's at a loss. It's not quite sure what to do with itself. See how they made that move up? Nice little move up, and now they're kind of dead again. How long is this current bar? So 6:55, it's not that old. Well, about 5 minutes. These bars going up took less than a minute to form. Makes me a little nervous buying into such a strong market. I know it's the trend. I know it makes more sense to buy in than to try to sell. But I'm not seeing the follow-through I would have anticipated after such a strong move. Or reasonably strong move. Crude oil's trying to break out higher. They're very close to the hard edge, which is at around 50.52 on the Eagle. So we did have a green bar sell. Remember, we were looking at the market kind of wedging up like this. We got a little bit of a breakout now to the upside. Market currently dealing with that hard edge around that 50.52 area. Might get a first micro-macro cross signal to buy. Problem with crude oil, of course, is covering the trade. But there might be a buying opportunity in there. Yeah, the bulls just keep pushing. You can tell the volume that's going through here, though. There is some selling that is going on. A lot of contracts changing hands at these levels. You can tell from the width of this bar, or these couple bars here, or also on the Falcon and Raptor. There's definitely some interest in that. The soybean market's starting to unwind. So soybeans moving lower into the hard edge. I'd be looking for another opportunity to short here on soybeans. Well, they might not give me a second chance to get in. Geiger counter trying to pull here now to the short side. You can see we've got this bulk of sell orders coming through. Took the Geiger counter from what was primarily a bullish phase, and now all of a sudden it seems like, at least according to the Geiger counter, there's nothing but sell orders on the board. Wow, the NASDAQ just stuck. Thought I'd check a couple of the websites just to see if there's any information out there about what's going on today, but no, there's nothing. Well, the market should at least give me something to talk about. I got up early for this. soybeans slowing their decline somewhat, but not really enough for us at the moment to try to hop on board. I expect there would be a little bit of a retrace through here. Perhaps the market coming back on the other end of the trading band, and then coming back with another sell signal, which you could interpret as a rule of three, even though it's only going to be the second sell signal. But we'll see if they give us that. Right now they just keep plodding lower. Well, everybody's dead sideways. The only market that's actually going anywhere at the moment is soybeans. And they're not going to give me a second chance to get in. Had the sell signal out of the open, and it's just your basic trend change signal, and they haven't looked back. Nice steady progression. That's the nice thing about soybeans, is once they settle on a direction, they pretty much stick with it. We've got crude oil in a little bit of a sideways consolidation. Right here, a little bit of a trading range. We've produced a sell signal, a with trend signal, but we're against the ATR, and we're near these obvious lows. And hey, this is crude oil, so while I think we're going to see crude oil head lower here, the safer plan is to allow the market to break out, retest, and then look for that follow-up signal. But it looks like the sellers are going to make a break for it. speaking of sellers making a break for it, still looking for that soft edge sell signal. We've got a very, well, what looks to be a very overbought market. See the Geiger counter again trying to pull to the short side. And I'm not trying to be overly bearish on the market. I do my best not to come into the day with a bias. Well, not getting the soft edge sell signal yet. Way to go, Tony. Tony giving a shout out to Russell. Tony says, thanks, Russell, for that first eagle signal. He says, I took 2 contracts for 40 ticks. Nicely done, Tony. So what Russell's been focusing on is the first signal that the eagle produced, the first in sync signal. So in this case, we've got a bullish band. Here's the first signal right out of the open, or a few minutes after the open. A buy signal. Took a little while, but there you go. Hit its profit objective. And it does seem to have some pretty good follow through. Yeah, crude oil, look at this. Here's crude oil. They're definitely within a trading range. So the market broke down. Now we are definitely moving sideways as the market continues to honor this 50.05, 50.10 area so far. Well, things progressing very slowly. It's just nothing to talk about, folks. There's nothing going on here at the moment. Crude oil is sideways. Soybeans looks like they're going to give us that little bit of a reaction. There we go. We got soybeans drifting higher. Still waiting for the NQ to commit, or more specifically, commit to a sell. And I don't know if I'm going to get it. Rod asks that first instinct signal after the open on the Eagle, is it always valid? Well, if you're asking, does it always work out? No, but it does work out often enough that you should consider it. There's nothing else going on, so we may as well do a little back testing. So here was the one from Friday. Here's the one from this morning. You can see both those worked out. And here is the one from Thursday. Also worked out nicely. And okay, now your first in-sync signal probably came right here. Or it depends if you try to do the green bar sell. See, this one's a little conflicted. You did get a green bar sell signal that did not work out. But if you already considered the band bullish, which I probably would do, I would probably consider the band's directionality for this. You had this signal. I don't know if it got all the way to the profit target or not, but it would have been close. Yeah, close enough that you could at least do something with your stops. Here was one, wrong tool. Here was one that failed. Or, sorry, I shouldn't say it failed because it does depend on where you placed your stops, right? It's not a failure until your stop gets hit. So if you go 2 swings back and you put your stop below here, 48.25, you would have been okay. Took a little heat, but the trade did eventually head higher. See, that's the nice thing about trading is you can always back test your theories. I guess this would be the first in sync signal right there. That one also came up a little bit short of its profit objective. That might be the first one that truly failed, but you know what? You would have had an opportunity to do something with your stops here. So even if you didn't get to the profit objective, you should have been able to reduce your risk somewhat on the trade, especially when the market did this little up, down, up scenario. That should have alerted you to the possibility of a reversal. Here's one that worked out very well. Another one that worked out quite nicely. So you can see it's definitely worth trying. Even if you just put a onesie on it. Just throw a single contract on it. Okay, now this one, you see, it's a green bar sell, which is our with sync signal. Well, I guess this band is not as twisted as the other one we were looking at, is it? All right, so there you go. There's a green bar sell. And another very solid move. So, yeah. Even though it doesn't work 100% of the time, it certainly works often enough that you should consider taking it. Oh, good to know. Tom writes, Indicator Warehouse has a very nice indicator called color session time that you can set the market start time, and it makes it easy to back test the market open. Yes, that's the one. There's a theory that there's better times of the day to trade. Some people like to trade the open. Some people don't like to trade the open. Noon hour is universally understood as a pretty risky time to trade. That would be noon hour Eastern time. As traders break for lunch. And an hour after the open, which is where we're at right now, traditionally, if there has been a trend out of the open, this is the time when the market tends to reverse on the trend. So it does seem as though we've had a little bit of an uptrend this morning. We'll see whether or not that holds true, whether we get a reversal. All right, Tony's taking the plunge. He's shorting the mid cap. We're getting a macro pullback here now, which I don't focus on this a lot, but you could short any of these signals. The reason we don't short the signals is that they're normally strong with trend signals. In other words, here's a macro pullback signal. You could set up to sell the failure of the macro pullback instead of buying it. So why don't we do that? Well, because the market can bring you in and then, the market will bring you in and then stop you out, because this macro pullback signal tends to be a stronger continuation signal than a counter trend signal. Now this is going to be our third macro pullback within the trend, which does make you a little bit suspicious. Of course, I've been hanging on all morning here trying to get a tradable signal. Missed the early one. Oh well, it happens. Days like today, I always remember a friend said the big money is always on the surprise side. If you think it's going to go lower, that's when it goes higher. When you think it's going to go higher, that's when it seems to go lower. All right, the macro pullback struggling a little bit. This might be the retest of the high, or test of the extreme. We'll see whether or not we get a short signal. Sorry, I can't help but think that a retest of the hard edge is due. I can't help it. wait for that. Peter asks, Eric, what are your settings on the Ultimate Support and Resistance Suite? My numbers are a little bit different than yours. It's most likely due to the data series, Peter. I'm running a default 24/5 with 10 days of data. I think that's enough. Is that the right tool? Yep. The 24/5 versus the 24/7 is usually what skews the numbers a little bit. The 24/7 setting takes into account the Sunday morning Globex. Or I guess it's not morning everywhere. The Sunday Globex. So try the 24/5 and see whether that doesn't help. Tiny, tiny little range here. Right, like so. I'm going to treat this as a test of the extreme. I'm going to look to see whether or not we get a sell signal. Come on. Man, that's hard staying with this market. Nothing yet. They're still working that macro pullback signal here on the hawk. The eagle obviously still bullish. The falcon flattening out a little bit, but still very bullish. And the raptor looking for a confirmation of the test of the extreme. A sell signal, a move back to the hard edge. crude oil over here quickly. Oops, we've been watching crude oil in this sideways range. This bar here, currently 741, the bar beside the 720, this bar has been forming 20 minutes going on half an hour and still nada. Ah, good. Peter says the numbers are much closer now using the 24/5 settings. Wow. Craziness. Everything's dead. Soybeans are dead now. Crude oil is dead. The NASDAQ is dead. Nothing is moving. Ooh. Curtis says the 30-year bond has dropped. That might actually support the stock market. Very often, not all the time, but very often there's an inverse relationship between the 30-year bond and the stock market. Okay, here's my soft edge sell. Gonna give it a go. Excuse me. The only good thing about the counter trend signals is that it's usually pretty obvious where you need to cover the trade, above the swing high, contract high, or current high. Way to go, Tony. Tony, you must be doing reasonably well today. Tony says, took a lot of heat on that mid-cap trade, but finally hit the profit target. Here come those stubborn buyers again, looking to give us another possible retest and a possible failure. Just making a couple notes in my journal. Oh, look at that. Came within a tick of my break-even trigger. Stinkers. All right, well, a glimmer of hope here as the market makes a couple of ticks lower. We do need to see a little bit more active selling on the part of the sellers. Maybe. Andrew says the Falcon issued a buy, so does that contradict the Raptor? Well, technically, the Falcon signal is not a buy signal. Remember with the Falcon, we're following the trend line. So the trend line is currently red, in which case we're looking for a sell signal. We're only looking for buy signals if the market or if the trend line is green. In fact, your trend change signal, which is one of your high probability signals with the Falcon, always occurs when the trend line changes color, and you have this characteristic little up, down, up pattern. Now notice during the down portion, you're actually producing, very often you'll produce a sell signal in the case of a bearish to bullish trend change. Here we're doing the opposite. Here the trend line has changed from green to red. Here are the buyers trying to recover the market, and we'll see whether the sellers come back, in which case we'll produce a sell signal. The Raptor, because the Raptor incorporates elements of the Hawk, the Falcon, and the Eagle, sometimes it will produce that signal a little bit earlier, because of course it does have some attributes from the Hawk. Here on the Hawk, you'll see, oh, we were producing a red bar buy signal a moment ago, and now we're working on a possible first micro macro cross lower. The trend lines have changed, bar colors all out of sync, so we need to wait for those bar colors to come back into sync and to produce a sell signal. It isn't unusual to get signals contradicting each other, though, where, like here on the Eagle, we're producing a buy signal. It's currently against the ATR, but if the bar closes on the high, it will flip the ATR over and confirm that buy signal. Now, this is not one of our high probability signals. It's just a basic signal that has developed within the trend. Does that mean you shouldn't take it? Well, if you're going to take it, you need to bear in mind it's not a high probability signal, right? If I try to focus on the high probability signals, I look for the hard edge bounces. That's a high probability signal. I look for the trend change. That's a high probability signal. I look for the red bar buys and the green bar sells, which I got to go back a couple days to find one. Well, you know what they look like. So the Eagle looking a little bit bullish at the moment, whereas the Hawk and the Falcon already looking a little bit bearish, and the Raptor, again, this may turn out to be a bigger test of the extreme. Obviously, it has to hold the highs. I looked at this little itty-bitty test of the extreme here as a reason to sell. And it may turn out I was a little bit too early on that. We'll see. I would love to see the market turn here. There is some selling going on. You see the tails on these bars here? There is some selling. Currently the buyers still in control, but if we can get one of these bars to turn over, then there's a good chance we'll see at least an attempt to move the market lower. May not move lower, but at least there should be an attempt to move the market lower. All right, boys and girls, I think we're going to button up the room here. This trade could take forever. It could take the rest of the day to get to its profit objective. I'm going to try to nurse it along a little bit, but I don't know. It's an odd kind of day today. The afternoon likely to be a little bit more active. At the moment, though, it's a really tight little range, and the buyers and sellers just kind of feeling each other out. So be careful. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more active session. Give us a few more opportunities. Talk to you then. Bye for now.